I see the crystal raindrops fall, and the beauty of it all is when the sun comes shining through to make those rainbows in my mind. When I think of you sometime, I wanna spend some time with you, just the two of us. We can make it if we try, just the two of us, just the two of us, just the two of us. Building castles in the sky, just the two of us, yeah, you and I. We look for love, no time for tears. Wasted water's all that is. It don't make no flowers grow. Good things might come to those who wait, but not for those who wait too late. We gotta go for all we know, just the two of us. We can make it if we try, just the two of us, just the two of us, just the two of us. Building castles in the sky, just the two of us, you and I. I hear the crystal raindrops fall on the window down the hall, and it becomes the morning dew. And darling, when the morning comes and I see the morning sun, I wanna be the one with you, just the two of us. We can make it if we try, just the two of us, just the two of us, just the two of us. Building castles way on high, just the two of us, you and I. Da 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 da. Can we be together? Just the two of us. Get it together, baby. Come and build a castle with me in the sky, you and I.
Hello, hello. How's everyone doing? Welcome to today's stream. Today, my brother will be joining me very soon. Very, very soon. And we'll be doing a Q&A together. And you guys are free to ask me any questions that you might have. So yeah. But please, if you're in chat, say hello. I'd love to know if you're watching. Yeah, let me know. By the way, did you guys get a notification about this stream? Because I didn't. And I usually get notifications about this stream. So, I don't know what's going on with that. Unreliable YouTube notifications. Yeah, but please say hello if you're here, and my brother will be coming shortly. Hi.
Hi, you ready?
Started already. Come.
Oh, you started already?
Got a few people watching. 3 people watching at the moment, according to YouTube. But they'll come in soon. This is my setup anyway. You come sit a bit closer so you're more in frame.
Why am I so low?
Gonna sit in this chair?
No, sorry.
I can shrink this chair a bit.
It's a power move, isn't it, for the interviewer? You always be above.
Is it? Yeah. So this is the stream setup. I didn't get a notification. Did you get a notification on your phone about the stream?
No, I didn't.
Neither did I, which is annoying because normally it notifies everybody that I've gone live, but it didn't. Yeah. I mean, write on the whiteboard because I usually do that, and then I'll say like, ask me
Oh
questions.
no, I do have one. I do, but it didn't give me a push-up.
Oh.
But usually it's here and then this one.
Yeah. Guys, if you're watching, please say hello. In chat. Usually it takes like a few minutes for people to come in. Sometimes it'll like slowly climb until about half an hour in, and then about half an hour in usually is when you hit about the peak, and then
Okay.
it'll maintain that then for the next half an hour, roughly. But you can post on your social media too if you want. Say that live with your
For
bro.
my 3 followers.
All 3 of your friends. I'll say hi. Ask questions.
They can't hear, is it?
No, they can hear.
They can hear.
I'm just people who are just tuning in.
You got it?
No problem. Oh, Mum. Hi, Mum. I don't know who else. There's a lot of people who like to just lurk. And by lurk, I mean they just sit in the stream and they don't type anything. So if you're lurking, I know you're lurking because it tells me that there's more people watching than are typing. So, guys, please, I don't know you're watching unless you type something. So, I don't know specifically who's watching unless you type something. So type something and say hello. NBS says, "Hey Pete, nice to see your bro. What's his name and how old is he?" What is his name and how old is he?
I'm Lucas, and I'm 28 now. Oh wow, that's old now.
You are well old. 28. My brother's 5 years older than me. Danny Hatcher. Yep, about right. I don't know what I don't know what you're referring to there. Yes, he is old. That is, I agree with you.
Yeah, that's right.
Not too old though. Okay, so usually in these interim bits, we're waiting for everyone to come in. I'll like
Give
just
an update.
talk about what's going on in my life and what's happening.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about what's going on, or like what's your life going? What's happening in your life right now?
What's happening in my life? Get married, so that's good.
That's a pretty big deal.
It's quite a big deal. And what else is going on? Working, and managed to come home and visit Pete and the family, which is good. So, you know, I live in New York, so, you know, it's a bit of a trip. But it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy you're here. Danny says, Himalaya says, "Hey guys, what's up? Long time, hello brother. I know Himalaya. It's been a long time. I haven't uploaded for a couple of weeks. if you guys didn't know, I'm working really hard to finish my dissertation until September, so another 9 more days. But I thought I'd drop in here with my brother to say hello to you guys who are the most hardcore judo followers. So
The real crew.
the real the
Yeah.
real squad, you know. None of these fair weather people who just come for the fact checks, but like the hardcore Pete Judo fans,
People who love behavioral science.
who proper into wanting to learn more about behavioral science. Yeah. For you guys, we're here. That's why we're here today. Danny says, sitting in the background, watching, listening. The chat is a little delayed. Yeah, that's always the case with live streams, mate. It's always a little bit delayed. Danny says, what makes him more successful? Am I allowed to talk about your job?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right. What's your job?
What's my job?
What's your job title?
Well, my job title is it's Senior Director of Strategy and Global Expansion for HelloFresh, which is a meal kit online e-grocery business.
People know what HelloFresh is. You don't have to
I
like.
don't know what HelloFresh is these days.
You don't have to explain like. HelloFresh is a meal kit delivery service.
Yeah, I don't know. Pete put that title. I didn't put that title. I think it's a bit generous, but you know,
He's very successful. I'm very proud of him. My brother is he's a very high-ranking person at HelloFresh, which has become a very successful company during your time at the company, isn't it?
yeah, I think it's been fun. It's been fun. It's been fun to grow it, and hopefully people know what it is now, which is good. And and have used it and enjoy the food. I think that's the main thing.
I say when I talk about you to people in public, like 8 out of 10 people know what HelloFresh is these days. You know, very few people are like, "Oh no, what's that?" But like most people are like, "Oh, food," and I'm like, "Food," you know.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, it's been a long time working on it, so I'm glad it's out there and doing well.
Nice. Jamie says success is relative. Jamie, by the way, nice to see you, mate. Jamie says success is relative.
Exactly.
True.
Yeah.
But I think whatever unless you're comparing my brother to like Jeff Bezos, I think by most barometers of success, my brother's doing pretty well.
He's been very nice, but I think but I agree with Jamie. Success is very relative.
I suppose. I mean, not everyone measures success by career success, right?
Yeah.
There's other forms of success which are perfectly valid.
Yeah.
Depends on what you care about. NBS says, good luck for your dissertation. Thank you,
Yeah.
NBS. Very kind. Himalaya says, Peter, give some book on choice architecture, man. I think like the best is just nudge, right? Like if you're just talking about like what is choice architecture and trying to understand what that, I know that's a boring answer because everyone knows nudge, but like if you're talking about a book which is specifically just talking about choice architecture, there's you have to read nudge, right? It's the best one. But really choice architecture is just a concept, it's just a framework, and knowing about behavioral science, knowing about biases and heuristics, and you can use frameworks like Combi and Mindspace. Like knowing all of these things just allows you to be a good choice architect, which means that any book about behavioral science is about choice architecture if you think about it that way, because all of it can be applied into how we design choices for people. Danny Hatcher says, with all the talk, you can't avoid HelloFresh. Yeah, I mean, HelloFresh is everywhere. And especially here on YouTube, you know, David Dobrik is sponsored by HelloFresh, so it doesn't really get much bigger than that. You have to sponsor Mr. Beast next or something.
Yeah.
Reach a bigger audience. Rosanna says, hi, why is he more... Oh, okay, we're going to get... The thing with live streams is that people like trickle in.
You get the same question.
So you might get the same question a few times, which is okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have to repeat this answer a few times, but essentially, Rosanna, my brother works for HelloFresh, very successful company, and what's your title again?
Senior Director of Strategy and Global Expansion. But I think Pete's being very generous with the title, like I said before.
It's a pretty sick title, isn't it?
It doesn't matter, isn't it? It's just a title. It's more about what you do and make sure you're adding value and working hard. And the main thing for us is obviously getting good food to people. I think that's the main thing. That's how we deem success when we look at the customer reviews. Make sure people are happy and enjoying the products. You know.
Yeah,
that's
having a good time.
success for us. Yeah.
Brian Batty says, hey Brian Batty. How's it going? Tina says, hi Pete and brother, how are you doing? Do you have more siblings? Your family has good genes. No, it's just 2 of us. How are you doing, bro? Tina asks, how are you doing?
How am I doing? I'm doing good. I'm glad I could come and see the family and Pete. Pete's doing great and he's working hard on his dissertation. And also, you know, working at Ogilvy, which is great. So I'm glad I can pop over and see him and mum and dad and stuff like that. So I'm doing great. It's very relaxing here, so it's good.
But yeah, no more siblings, unfortunately. Would you want another brother or sister?
Would I want another brother or sister?
Yeah.
Well, I think generally I'm quite pro having more than 2 kids because of the need to grow the population. I think that's. I think if you just have 2, then you're just replacing yourself, right? So probably like we need to get the average birth rate to like 2.1, something like that at least. So I wouldn't be against having more siblings.
Okay, but would you actually want another sibling to like interact with, not just from a replacement rate point of view?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I think having brothers and sisters is great because it's like you grow up together, you like go through a lot of things together, and you know, family is family, isn't it? At the end of the day, so
yeah.
I think it's great to have more siblings if possible. But yeah, at the same time, I think I'm glad we've got Pete, which is good, at least.
Yeah, I think I'd want another. I think I'd want a sister, actually.
I think it'd be cool to have a sister, right?
Yeah,
because our house is very boy dominated, I guess.
Yeah, three men and mum.
Yeah.
Very, very masculine.
Yeah, a lot of sport and a lot of stuff like that, and not much other stuff. Might be nice to have a balance, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Bit of yin to my yang or whatever, you know. I don't know, just chat nonsense.
Yeah.
It's interesting thinking about in the realm of developmental psychology, like basically kids will develop different like different connections or different like trends of how they interact with their parents depending on like the type of upbringing that they have. And so if you have more kids, you have to divide your attention amongst more people, which means that with each child you're going to have less attention devoted to them, and then it could be the case that you pay too much attention to, like, say, the youngest, who needs more attention because they're younger, which means that the older children get neglected more, which can lead to different types of like you can lead to more sort of attachment relationships, and if you really have like way too little attention by like parents, then you can develop like a lot of personality disorders in those early years. So it is something to consider. Like sometimes too many kids can lead to just splitting your attention between too many things.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like with most things, it's all about balance. Okay, we've got a lot of questions. A lot of people watching now. How many people are watching now? Let's see. 11 people are watching now. Danny says, you will get better at answering the questions as the stream goes on. Yeah, I mean, you're doing pretty well. My first stream, I was so awkward. So
it's my first time doing this, guys, so
yeah, be
bear with.
Himalaya says, guys, what did he study? I mean, your big brother who does more push-ups. Your brother is bulkier. My brother's bulkier than me.
Yes, great comment. Love it.
Absolutely incorrect. Don't know, mate. I think you're getting us confused. I'm the bulky one, and this is my brother.
The camera angle.
You think that that's my... You think that's Pete, but actually that's my brother. I'm Pete. I'm the bulky one. But what did you study at uni, and where did you study?
I went to Bath Uni, which is in England, and I studied business administration. So that was like a four-year degree.
Did you close the window? Hang on.
Undergrad. Oh, it's raining.
You take over for a minute.
Okay. Yeah, it was undergrad, and as part of the course, you had two work placements. So it's really like a 3-year course with 1 year of like actually working at 2 different companies. So yeah, that's what I studied. Really enjoyable. Would recommend Bath, definitely, if people fancy it.
Definitely. Bath is a pretty good uni, guys. They also have a behavioral science course, I think, if you're interested, or something related anyway. Jamie says, appreciate how you're both consumer/user-centric in your works, all about making a positive difference. Yeah, I mean, I like to think so. But I also just think like we're both pretty business-minded people, so we just kind of it seems natural that we would fall into to consumer-based industries rather than like academia or something that's less consumer-based. So but yeah, I mean, I think we both try to give people like use our skills to like help people and like have them make things that people will actually enjoy and like improve their life rather than like selling them cigarettes or something,
Yeah.
Aman says, yo Pete, long time, hi bro. Hi Aman, nice to see you. Yeah, I know it's been a while, guys. I'll be back in September more fully, and we'll go back to weekly uploads in September, but for now I'm too busy with my dissertation, which, if you're wondering, it's going all right, and I'm making progress. I should finish on time, but it is tight. So yeah, I do need all the time that I can get, really. Prab, nice to see you. Prab says, good morning, Pete and brother. Good morning.
Morning.
Vanya says, hi Pete, great to see your brother join you. Does he apply the concepts of BE in his workspace/personal life like you do? I don't think so. I mean, you don't have much training in behavioral economics, right?
No, I think Pete definitely kind of like taught me a lot of it, and like a lot of the science behind it. I think there are a lot of things in business where people like hear things like there's like, okay, this is a good way to do something, or whatever. Especially in the kind of like tech design UI side of stuff, but no one really knows like why. Do you know what I mean? Like no one really knows like where did it come from. So like sales funnels and stuff like that, and kind of like app design and things like that. But I don't think people really know often in kind of like the product management space or in the kind of strategy side, like why these things are there. But they're definitely there, right? I think like I'll give you an example of like Uber, for example. They really were very big on behavioral economics, right? And I think a lot of the things that people saw them do, we wanted to, a lot of people tried to like take and, okay, how do we lay out our, our options, for example. But I think it's becoming even more to the forefront of like, commercial business now. And the stuff that Pete does, I think is pretty on trend, I think, for where things are going. Yeah, I think it's a good thing. Yeah, but definitely we need to hire people, with that background, and I think that's not as common a skill set, isn't it? Really, I don't think there's that many people who know like all the principles that well. I think that's why Ogilvy is so popular. But yeah, it's definitely something I want to use more and get more into.
I mean, it was the trend that Rory spotted in business that was like, people knew how to do a lot of this stuff already, but only through like a very crude trial and error kind of methodology, which was just like, let's try this thing because I think it'll work. Or it was like, our competitors do this, so it's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually understanding why it works, that wasn't there. And knowing why it works is important because that means that you'll try less bad things.
Well, I mean, that's a great point, isn't it? Because I think like everyone knows how to do like A/B tests and stuff, right? In business, like, okay, if we show this or we show that, like what happens? But the thing that people often forget is that tests cost money, right? Because you need to hire engineers, you need to like run it, and then there's opportunity costs. Like if you're running this type of test, then why should you run this type of experiment versus another one, right? So there's a lot of costs, and so I think understanding the principles can really guide the direction of it, so that you kind of waste less money and waste less time, right? Because a lot of the times you can test things that make a lot more sense.
Exactly right. Like for example, just take messenger effects as a really basic example, right? So like, messenger effects are choosing who delivers the message to your consumer, right? And who delivers the message has a huge influence on whether people will actually be receptive to that message. But rather than just like trying random people in your office or something who you have no idea who's going to be like the best one, you can say, well, Cialdini says that we should have like an authoritative messenger, somebody who has authority in the domain that he's talking about. For example, like a dentist talking about toothpaste is an authoritative messenger. Or you could have a likable messenger. That's why celebrities are important, because they're likable, and so therefore people will have positive associations with your product. Or you could have an identifiable victim. For example, if you're a charity, right, or an identifiable beneficiary would be a better answer, right? So if you're a company, you could say, well, let's have an actual customer deliver the message rather than somebody at our company deliver the message. And that works because they're an identifiable beneficiary of the message. When you understand these principles, you can come up with a lot of things to test very quickly, which have a higher likelihood of working than if you're just sort of stabbing in the dark. Let's go through some more of these questions. Danny says, were you at HelloFresh since the start?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so I kind of joined very early. I joined the London team, and there was only like 10 of us at that time. So really, really early, kind of did a bit of everything. I was kind of straight out of uni. And so, yeah, it's been about 8 years now. So it's, pretty old.
Can you tell the story about like driving to the supermarket?
Oh yeah. So I think in the beginning, like, there's no like departments, right? Really, there's kind of marketing people and ops people, operations people, and so there are a lot of things about starting a business. I think a lot of people think it's quite glamorous, but it's really not. And so when you in the beginning, if a customer doesn't have something, or you are really short on something, people see HelloFresh today, I think they think we're like this big corporate conglomerate or whatever. But in the beginning, it was like, we're short 200 avocados, and so there were some times when I'd have to just literally drive to Costco or to like a supermarket and just pick things up and drive them to where our site was at the time, which was Milton Keynes. So lots of kind of war stories. I think anyone who's like really started a business will have like a lot of kind of battle stories, just trying to get things to customers, trying to solve problems in real time.
I love that story because it just shows you like how like on the ground you were in the beginning. And then now, how many boxes do you ship nationwide in America?
Oh, in America?
Roughly.
In America, it's like 400,000. Every week.
So you can't go to the supermarket and just buy 400,000 avocados.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the scale that it's grown to over 8 years already.
8 years already.
Oh man, you've been there for ages. But yeah, like 8 years ago, it used to be like my brother was like driving the supermarket sometimes, and now it's like 400,000 boxes, which is pretty mad.
That's just in America.
That's just in America, yeah.
So yeah, we're kind of all over the world now. So if you're watching in Australia or the Netherlands or Germany, France, Canada, America, UK, anything, you can try HelloFresh. Let us know what you think.
Nice.
Use discount code. No, I'm joking.
Rosanna says I typed this question before the answer. Oh, sorry, Rosanna. Aman says, bro, tell me some behavioral hack to help me focus on my priorities more. I am motivated in doing my studies, but want some hacks that might give a push. Yeah, great question. So the key thing to remember is that motivation is only about 20% of the battle. Okay, and the most important thing is where you direct that motivation in order to help you follow through on your goals. And so when you have motivation, that gives you energy. But most people then use that motivation to just make a start. But an actually better use of that motivation is to think about how you can hack your environment in order to help you follow through on your goals later on when you don't have motivation. So use your motivation. With priorities, one of the best things you can do, and it's so simple, is literally just make a task list, a daily task list, right? And put the most important thing you have to do at the top. And what I personally like to do is I have like a little, I'm gonna show you. I have this set of little cards on my desk, and if I have a lot of things to do in a day, I have one of these cards, and I'll literally write all the things down with an actual pen. And this is far more effective than doing it on your phone, because your phone has too many distractions, and also you turn the screen off, and so you don't actually see it. So if you write it down physically and you have it on your desk, it becomes a visual reminder for you throughout the day about what the most important things you have to do are. So every time you are cued by something else in your environment which is distracting, like a notification on your phone, or the temptation to like play games or whatever, you'll have that counteracting visual reminder to actually finish the task that the most important tasks you have to do that day. So it's about, remember that habits are triggered by cues, and so if you want to have good habits, you need to build in cues for those good habits as well. So writing a visual task list that you leave on your desk, I think, is a really effective one. And also I would say, like, yeah, bad habits are obviously barriers to performing good habits. And so if you can think about ways to break your bad habits, like for example introducing friction to those bad habits, then that'll help you focus more on your priorities too. But the key is not to focus internally, but as always, it's to focus externally and to say, oh, how can I outsource my self-control to my environment rather than relying on my internal willpower and motivation. Himalaya says, yeah, I have been in a habit of listening to you every Sunday. Good luck for dissertation. I studied business in Singapore, but then I quit. Everyone thought the same. Do you have a BS team in your company? You don't have a BS team in HelloFresh, do you?
No, we have a lot of marketing people. So there's a lot of like brand people and a lot of like UI designers and UX designers. And we have a lot of people focused on customer experience, but we don't have a team that's like specifically, you know, about behavioral science.
Yeah.
But you know, we try, like I said earlier, I think we try and incorporate a lot of the principles now, because I think it's like, it's so obvious that the return on investment of trying some of these things is really good. I think Himalaya has a question. Experimenting is expensive, but not experimenting is more expensive, and I think that's exactly right. Right. So what we were saying earlier was that, you know, the one role behavioral science can play in a business is actually like improving the rate that you're testing the right thing, right, and that you're actually testing the best thing. And so, you know, in a business context, like for marketing or operations or customer experience, whatever it is, there's like a gazillion things that you could test, you know, most of the time. And so trying to pinpoint what's the most valuable, and you know, I think you know, having some kind of academic principles and some, you know, some of the things that you already know psychologically are like proven to be high impact things, can help guide it. But yeah, agree. Like experimenting is so important in business, because yeah, people think it's all gut instinct, but it's actually a lot of it is just iteration.
Totally. And
yeah.
the other thing that behavioral science does for businesses is, when you understand how people's psychology works, you can spot opportunities where your competitors can't, right? You can say, well, nobody else has tried this thing because nobody else has tried this thing, right? Like there's nothing to copy from, there's no model to copy from, but we know from this other domain of psychology, right, where it's worked for the same, we're trying to change the same behavior but in a totally different category, right? Then you can make these connections where other people can't when you understand the underlying psychology behind it. And that's really the core part of my job at Ogilvy, is a client will come to us with, you know, a behavior that they're trying to change, and one of the best ways that we come up with ideas for things to test is to say, is to be like, well, in this other category, which is completely unrelated to your company, well, not completely, but like in a completely different genre to your company, and they've done this thing, and we think we can apply that same principle to your company and potentially have like huge gains that none of your competitors have even realized was a possibility. So that's really where the value of behavioral science is the most. I think. I think in my opinion, I mean, definitely working at Ogilvy, this is the opinion that I have because it's what we do. But like, the behavioral science needs to move away from just these kind of like little optimization changes, which are like, let's change a few words here and there, let's change a few pictures here and there, which is, that's easy and quick and good, but where the biggest impact will be for behavioral science is generating whole new ideas and ways of businesses operating based at the core with behavioral science in mind.
You also don't want to make sure you're iterating on something that's not great, right? So it's like kind of like sometimes you need a reset.
Exactly.
Like going back to kind of nuts and bolts of what is it you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. You can add as much parmesan to bad pasta as you want, but it's still bad pasta. Sometimes you need to start from scratch and like do it with correct technique from the beginning, and and then it'll be actually good. Aman uses a super chat, which is why it's highlighted, and he says, "Thanks, bro. Next live, also I will ask some hacks." Okay.
Nice.
Thanks, Aman. I appreciate the donation, mate. Absolutely not necessary, guys. Like, there's no pressure. But if you do want to donate money, there is an option below the chat button where there's a $sign, and that's a feature called Super Chat, where you can donate a small amount of money and have your message highlighted like that, like Aman, and it does support me. So thank you, Aman. I really do appreciate it.
Jamie T, I think we're on you.
Jamie T. Jamie T says, "How did you two manage relocating for your work, especially for Pete since it was during the pandemic? I'll be relocating soon, and the idea is kind of overwhelming." I haven't relocated yet, so as you can tell, I'm still in the same house that I was in before I got my job at Ogilvy, and I will be moving in September. So that's why I'm not making videos at the moment, because I got so much going on. I'm finishing my dissertation and I'm preparing to move, and I have family visiting, so there's kind of a lot going on. I just don't have time to make videos right now. But yes, I will be moving. We have an apartment in London. I'm going to be moving there in just over a week, and then but it is pretty scary. I never lived in London before, and I'm sure you're feeling pretty scared too with your move. But I think with anything, just do it in pieces, and you'll be alright. The interesting thing about moving is that moving house is one of the classic examples of my favorite behavioral science concept, which is something called habit discontinuity. So habit discontinuity is when you go through these big environmental life changes, like for example moving house, and what happens is the things in your old house which were cues to your habits, many of them become broken because you're in a totally new house. And so you're essentially, from a habits point of view, you're basically starting off with a new blank slate. And this can be bad if you had a lot of good habits before, because then you have to basically rebuild all of these good habits again. But if you had some bad habits which you were really struggling to get rid of, then moving house and starting with this blank slate from habit discontinuity can be a really good way to kickstart new habits. I see Trishant spamming hi. No need to spam, Trishant. I can see you.
Hi, Trishant.
But thank you for coming. I see you, Trishant. Relax. Himalaya said... wait, where are we up to?
You just did Jamie T.
I just Jamie T. Vanya. Okay, Vanya says, "Thanks to people like Pete who are sharing awareness about BE to the world. Having companies create more job opportunities in this field will really help the growth of BE as a field to pursue." Yeah, and there are more and more companies developing their own behavioral economics teams, right? Like, I feel like it's every week I'm logging onto LinkedIn and somebody's talking about some other big company that started their new behavioral science team. Google has one led by Maya Shankar. Spotify has one led by some people who I know. Uber had one from the beginning, and all of their competitors now have one, like Lyft, and all of them will have their own behavioral science team. Bupa Healthcare, which is led by one of the people who used to work for Ogilvy. So yeah, like a lot of big companies are starting their own behavioral science teams, and then for the companies that don't have behavioral science teams, which is still the majority of them, then they come to consultancies like Ogilvy, like my company, and get us to do projects with them. So then they don't have to hire new people, like whole people dedicated to the company. Tina says, "What is one thing each of you admire the most about the other one?" Oh, that's a nice question. I'll go first. I think that like you're very successful, which we all know, but I think you never gloat about it, never. Which I think is very admirable.
Oh,
because I would defo gloat about it.
That's very kind.
So yeah, I think that's one thing I admire a lot about my brother is he's very humble and just like very just like focused on just doing a good job all the time, which is yeah, it's very admirable.
It's very kind. I think for Pete, I think if anyone's seen his video how I got my dream job, right? That's what it's called. How I got my job. I think you can listen to that story, and you know, I can tell you I was there the whole time, right? In some capacity, right? And saw his journey and kind of what he went through, you know, trying to, you know, find a path and find the right groove for your life, isn't it? And what you were doing. And I think one thing I really admire about what Pete's done is he's really focused on giving a lot, right? Like with content and putting himself out there and talking about what he's passionate about. And you saw how, you know, just doing that and focusing on that really got him his dream job, and he's loving it and he's working really hard. And that's despite, you know, all these challenges that come in the way. And I think it's a good thing for everyone to take away from that video, actually, which is, you know, put yourself out there and you know, follow, like, you know, if you're really into something, that's your brain kind of telling you that there's something there, I think, right? Like I've always thought like, okay, what am I actually interested in? Right, and like what do I think is a good use of my time? And I think, you know, there's a lot of things out there which are terrible uses of time. And you know, Pete kind of navigated all of these situational challenges, right, and psychological challenges, and is doing really well. And so I think that's something I really admire, just the tenacity and the focus on what you like, and just kind of doing that, you know, and whatever's in the way, just keep doing it. And I think another thing, like I said, like I really admire is that Pete really puts himself out there on social and YouTube and things like that. Something I've never done, and I think that's really a big thing for the future. I think people that can really put themselves out there and are confident to put themselves out there, which isn't always easy. It's a lot of work, and a lot of stuff comes in, right? You got a lot of inbound, but you know, there's this new economy out there of, you know, all of these platforms like YouTube and things like that. And even though they've been around for a while, you know, today you can see their impact. You know, someone on YouTube can have more impact than, you know, CNBC, right, on the markets and on businesses and people. So yeah, I admire that a lot about you.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, my best advice for any of you guys who are like wanting to get noticed in a very competitive job environment is, when you apply for your job, try and submit something that's more than just your CV, right? If the best you can do for applying for a job is just a PDF of your CV, you're not really trying that hard, okay? So if you go out there, actually do things, have a portfolio of stuff that you can show your employer, and it is like a million times more impressive than the thousands of other people who are just sending in a PDF of their CV. So, you know, if you want to stand out, you got to do something different. And for me, that was YouTube. You can start YouTube as well if you want, I think. But I think, you know, social media is the easiest way to build a portfolio that's like so visible and public and really shows that you've invested in this thing for a long time. And that's way more impressive to an employer than just saying, I'm passionate about this thing, because everyone says they're passionate about this thing, but how can you actually show it? And being able to show it is way more powerful.
Yeah, like true passion is like should lead to action.
Exactly.
Right. And so it's like, you know, if you're really passionate about business, you go and you also started a business, right? Or you would have joined an early business, or you would have done something like that. If you're really passionate about behavioral economics, like Pete is, you know, a lot of people weren't watching in the beginning or doing anything, and you just went and started sharing because it's like flowing out of your head, right? So it's, I think if you're really passionate, there should be something tangible to show for how passionate you are, right, over time. So kind of saying you're passionate is completely different to the kind of like knock-on effect of being passionate about something, which is that you've actually done something, right?
Yeah.
And you've actually gone out there and done something. And it doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be start Facebook or something, but you know, it has to be something, right? And I think in today's world, because of technology, there's like, you know, there's so many options versus in the past. I think it was really hard, right? So
Totally.
yeah.
Totally. Like
Yeah.
I can tell you about some of like I have a friend called I won't say his name, but I have a friend at Cowrie, who's one of our competitors, a pretty well respected behavioral science team as well, and he started his own behavioral science company in India, right? Like, and had clients and everything. Like, how impressive is that? You know, a guy, he was like 20, he was basically the same age as me, like 21, 22 years old, started his own behavioral science team in India and like had clients and did projects and had case studies. And that's how he got his job at Cowrie, you know, like, because like, not only did he have a master's degree from Warwick like me, but he had like actual practical directly relevant experience that he's done himself and gone out there and done himself. And so it's not like he had a huge portfolio of clientele, but just a few is very impressive, you know, because it shows that you're really putting yourself out there and trying this stuff for real, and that's so valuable, than just someone who's just good at the book stuff, you know. Himalaya says, Blue Apron is your competition. How do you differentiate with other delivery companies? There's a company selling disfigured vegetables. Yes, Wonky Veg. They're pretty popular. Will this pandemic help get more sales? Has sales soared?
Good question. I think, well, first of all, on the pandemic point, I think we were definitely very focused last year on just getting food to people in their homes, right? And I think a business like ours gives people an opportunity to do something that isn't on their screen. That's kind of, very healthy and productive and wholesome, cooking with your family or your significant other or even by yourself, ingredients from scratch, following a recipe. It's very creative. It's kind of Lego with a very tasty kind of like impact. And so, I think it's, we really maxed out our capacity. I think that's safe to say. And, we were scrambling to make sure that we could, work with farmers and work with meat producers and the like to, when they had to shut down because someone had a case outbreak in their factory or something, how could we work with them to kind of adjust volume demand so that they had enough volume, but at the same time, we were not straining them too much and all of these different things. So, but yeah, a lot of demand for at home. I think, the key stat really is online grocery penetration in the market. So how many people are buying food online versus physically, and that 2x'd basically last year for most countries, if not more. And so definitely a lot of demand. In terms of differentiation, there's actually a lot of companies over the last kind of 8 years I've been doing this that have come up and kind of gone away, right? A lot have come up and gone away, and some are still around. I think it's safe to say one of the things that we really focus on is the customer experience, and I think that really matters at the end of the day when it comes to differentiating with any product. But making sure that all the basics are done to the highest degree. So delivery quality, food quality, ingredient quality, customer service, price. All of these factors play into a significant competitive advantage. With Blue Apron in particular, I think we have a lot more recipe choice. We have a way more variety of ingredients. We use AI in partnership with our chefs to produce the best recipes. And so this seems to have given us a significant edge over a long period of time. And we continue to innovate and iterate on all of our different product lines. We also own a lot of the brands too. So we have a lot of the brands, around Back to 75, Green Chef, things like that, which actually also HelloFresh brands.
And you can actually, talking about habit discontinuity earlier, you can actually think about why sales would soar so much during the pandemic because of habit discontinuity. So for many of us, our cooking and eating habits are very habitual. We eat the same things every week. We cook similar meals every week at the same times in the same place. And so it becomes very difficult for a company like HelloFresh to gain new customers because people just have ways of eating that they're so used to, right? And so getting people to adopt new ways of eating is actually pretty difficult. But the pandemic is another example of habit discontinuity because it's like a dramatic shift to our daily routines. And so a lot of these old ways of living in the house had to be shifted dramatically during this time, which is why it was very stressful for a lot of people, because whenever you go through habit discontinuity, it's very stressful because you don't have all of these automatic behaviors so your brain is having to work extra hard all the time. But then also it provides that blank slate to start new habits. And so I think a lot of people were looking for new ways to eat and looking for new ways to enjoy things that they were doing very routinely before. And meal kit delivery service like HelloFresh would provide that for them. You know, it's like it's a new way of experiencing something which they've become so accustomed to in the past. And so you would expect with any kind of big habit discontinuity event that you know, people would be adopting sort of new ways of doing habitual things. This is a free bit of consultation for you. You should target people who have just moved house with HelloFresh.
Because they're resetting all their habits. Yeah.
Because of habit discontinuity, they got a blank slate for building new eating habits, and so you'd be like, well, now you're in this new house, maybe you want to do meal kit delivery too, you know? And they're actually much more. Those customers should be a lot more receptive to that message than general people.
Good idea. Good idea.
Some people spamming. Aman says habit discontinuity. Yep, you talked about it previously. Very useful. Jamie says, I saw habit discontinuity from a 2 cents video. What I'm most excited about relocating, to be honest, since my habits have been messy from all the work from home. Yeah, so this is one of the great things about habit discontinuity is that if you had some habits which you weren't very happy with before, then moving home is a great opportunity to sort of to reset and build new strong habits instead. And so that generally we see that trend that like people who had bad habits change, go through some habit discontinuity, and then generally perform better afterwards, on average. There's an interesting study done on baseball players. Okay, so baseball players who were performing very poorly in their home ground were, most of them benefited from a change of team, because they went through this habit discontinuity, and so like their habit of how they played baseball was changed. All the cues were gone for how they used to play in their home ground, and so yeah, most of them benefited. Whereas people who were overperforming in their old team then changed their home ground, and they actually worsened their performance for the same reason, right? So they had a habit of performing really well. And then when they had to form new habits, on average, they performed slightly worse instead. And it wasn't just regression to the mean, because you would control by measuring people who didn't change team and just continued playing, right? And so if it was regression to the mean, then it would say that, well, it doesn't matter whether you moved or not, you should just, you know, your performance would just fluctuate and go up and down. But no, it was if you control for that, you can see that it was literally the move that made people worsen or improve their performance. So yeah, I like that study on habit discontinuity. Himalaya says, color affects taste. Why do you have a bright green artificial color? Wouldn't it be good with natural lemon green? What? I don't know what food you're talking about. I could talk about color in food though, which is we form associations between colors and flavors through consistent pairing of them in our environment, right? So consistently, if we're told that it's fruit and we're told that it's red, it's going to be strawberry flavored. And if we're told that it's fruit and it's yellow, then we think it's going to be lemon flavored, right? Which is why when you have like a lemon flavored sweet that's red, it's like sense. It's a bit weird, and you actually feel a bit uncomfortable about it. So this is my new favorite concept in behavioral science, which is something called skeuomorphism. So skeuomorphism is the idea that if you want new products to make sense to your customers, then it should reflect like some old real world thing that they're already familiar with. So for example, when the iPhone first came out, the YouTube app was a TV, because people were like, oh, this is where I watch videos, right, on this thing. Or like the clock app on your phone has a clock symbol on it, because you're understanding that the clock resembles time, even though that clock doesn't do anything. It's just a picture of a clock, but you're like, that makes sense. It doesn't just say like clock or something, right? So And so the same thing is applying to colors in food, which is like, red food should mean strawberry and yellow food should mean lemon. And there's a funny study which looked at giving people different like fruit drinks, like some kind of like fizzy flavored water drinks, and they were all actually the same flavor, but they just added different food coloring.
And they tasted different.
And then they tested people to try it, and then they would say like, oh yeah, the red one tastes a bit more like raspberry or strawberry, and then the yellow one tastes more like lemon. But actually they were all the same.
Interesting. I mean, Herb, I'll pass the feedback along to the brand team, see what they think. I don't really know the logic behind the color.
Oh, that's what he was talking about. The HelloFresh logo.
The logo, yeah.
You have a bright green artificial. Wouldn't it be good with a natural lemon green? Yeah. But but thinking about logos, changing your packaging very dramatically as well can also have a queue breaking effect. So there's a case study with Tropicana, where Tropicana had this very consistent packaging of like Tropicana written in a little arc at the top, and then this orange underneath, right? That was the logo for Tropicana orange juice. And then one day they decided to go for this really big packaging rehaul of Tropicana, and it looked better. Like, it did look better. And they had like Tropicana written on the side in big letters, and then the orange was like cut in half this time, and it was like big, and like half the orange was shown in the packaging. It was a very dramatic change in how the packaging looked, and they actually decreased sales. So they improved the packaging but decreased sales, and the reason is because before it was an automatic association. I see that Tropicana packaging, I buy it, and I see that Tropicana and I buy it. And now the queue was gone. It was like, oh, this packaging is different now, and that basically made people think a bit more about what they were buying, and they would go, actually, do I really want Tropicana? And most people on aggregate said no, and so they actually decreased their sales. So you got to be careful with redesigns of your apps, because if it's too dramatic, you break the habit. Yeah, we're seeing a similar thing with Instagram now as well. A lot of people are clocking off Instagram, and they've changed their UI dramatically to be more like TikTok, right? And these dramatic changes to your UI have the same effect as changing the packaging very dramatically, like Tropicana, because it's breaking people's use habits, which means that people then stop and think, actually, do I really want to use this app? And if you're making people stop and think whether you actually want to use Instagram, a lot of people are saying no. Thanks, Aman. Vanya says, are you talking about the company Beast from India? Beast? No, I'm not talking about Beast. It was a different one. I can't actually remember the name of his company. I don't think it's going anymore. It's basically like him and some of his friends just doing some case studies with some small clients. But it's still impressive. Beast is a bit more formal. That was started by a guy called Umar. I can't remember his last name, but I think he has some affiliation to Warwick as well. He either studied there or something. But yeah, Umar started Beast in India, and that's a pretty a good one. Himalaya says, do HelloFresh just sell recipes or vegetables as you are in food delivery? Whatever I cook, which is close to crap, tastes so good to me. Peter, tell your brother about cake experiment adding eggs IKEA. You've seen my IKEA effect video.
Yeah, I know that one.
You know the egg.
Yeah, it's a famous one, that one.
So for you guys watching, if you guys don't know the case study, it's General Mills have a line of cake mix called Betty Crocker, and when Betty Crocker first came out, they had an instant cake mix where all the house, this is like the 50s or something, all the housewife had to do was add water to make the cake. And it was really, really easy, which is one of the principles of behavioral science. So you would think a lot of people would adopt it. But actually, it was too easy to the extent that housewives kind of felt like they were cheating when they served their guests an instant cake. And so how do you make the housewives value the product more? Well, you make it a little bit more difficult. You actually add an extra step, which is taking the eggs out of the powder and making them add the eggs themselves. Now when they add the eggs themselves, they can now feel like they can take ownership of the cake, and therefore they actually appreciate the product more, and their sales actually increased. And so HelloFresh has the IKEA effect built into its business model naturally, because cooking food has an IKEA effect to it. And when you successfully create a meal which you've never created before, even if it doesn't come out as perfectly as it does on the recipe card, you're still going to feel pretty good about it
because you made it.
Because you made it.
Yeah.
right? That's not just a chimichurri steak. That's your chimichurri steak, right? Like, you know, you feel good about what you're making. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like it's kind of, yeah, like I said, it's built into the design, isn't it? It's like you're still cooking and you're still making it yourself, and it's still physical, and it's not just add water. But yeah, sometimes there are some ingredients that we don't send, like, you know, olive oil and butter and things like that, which I think you're supposed to already have yourself.
Yeah.
Right. But meats and vegetables, you know, and you know, starches, we try and make sure they're there. But yeah, I think it's kind of quite inherent to the design. Like it is a thing where you're supposed to cook yourself, you know, and feel like you accomplished it, and you should feel like you accomplished it because you did put everything together. You know, all we did was supply you the recipe and the ingredients in the right amounts, right? And so actually a lot of our long-time customers have built up a bank of kind of like ideas of their own, right? So they know that whenever I do this tomato sauce with, you know, with these ingredients, I know I like to add extra chili flakes, or I like to add extra something else. And then they build up that skill over time. And we like to think that, you know, the longer you're using the product, you build up this bank of tricks, you know, like, oh, I know how to cut this onion faster, or I know how to do this, etc. And so you're kind of like, you know, getting better at cooking and being able to put your own flair to it, you know, as you go along. Yeah.
And here's the key thing about the IKEA effect that a lot of people get wrong, is that people focus on the IKEA effect as just, oh, if I put in more effort, then I'll appreciate it more. And that isn't the IKEA effect. Okay, the IKEA effect is the satisfaction you get from successfully creating something. And the key is successful. So if you fail, right, if you fail in your task of creating something yourself, then actually you have a negative IKEA effect and you actually feel bad about the product. So the good thing about HelloFresh is that it delivers all the ingredients in the measured amounts already. So your chance of failure is lower. And so you're more likely to succeed and make something that tastes at least pretty decent. And therefore, you're going to get the IKEA effect benefit. So, yeah, so if you're implementing like IKEA effect-based intervention for a company, you have to make it so there's extra steps, there's extra effort, but then it's also like pretty fail-safe. So you're not going to fail, because failing is worse.
Yeah.
How would you do your marketing in low budget? Is it just pilling money or money with picture of old healthy people in your packaging? Help it give a hint of longevity and health. I think that's where creativity comes in, really, isn't it? If you don't have much budget for marketing and you can't just flood every single channel with ads, then you have to be creative with it. And I think with social media these days and sort of thinking about network effects, it is like easier than ever to have huge virality in your marketing and budgeting with very little money input in the beginning. But what you do need is ideas. Right, is viral creative ideas that will actually capture people's imagination, and that's where companies like my company Ogilvy come in, because we're the creative people who think of all this wacky stuff that will like have disproportionately beneficial effects.
Definitely, I think, but in the beginning you can't afford to hire Ogilvy, right? I think he's saying like if you really literally just start.
Yeah,
I think if you literally just start your business, in growth marketing there's this term called growth hacks. Right, and over time you want to grow out of using growth hacks, right? But in the beginning, so for example, Facebook, you know, when Facebook first started, their growth hack was going to all the college campuses, and so literally the whole team would just go to a college campus and just start like signing people up for the app, talking about the app, like literally stop people on the streets and like, hey, let's do this, do this. You know, for HelloFresh in the beginning, one of our very relatively low cost early channels was just physically giving out gift cards on the around the tube stations in London. So like I would do that, you know, the team would just do that for a couple hours a day, maybe get like 10 sales, 15 sales extra a day just to like top up the numbers. But over time, like those 10, 15 sales, it's not very scalable, right? Like you definitely hire people to go and do that and stuff like that at some point. But even then, at some point, it becomes you're more reliant on Facebook, Google, you know, Instagram influencers, you know, things like that. But in the beginning of your business, you have to think about like what's the best way to hack some growth for you in the beginning. but then also have a plan to start testing channels, you know, as you raise venture capital, as you get more profitable, to kind of test, you know, okay, these other channels are going to be more sustainable. You know, like, does direct mail work? Does Instagram work for you? You know, Instagram doesn't work for everybody, right? Like, does Facebook work? Like, do types of influencers work? Like, you know, does this kind of PR strategy work? You know, so yeah, I'll give you another growth hack. Like, in the beginning was like, you know, even though we were like not a big business and really struggling to like pack all the boxes and everything in the beginning, we still made the effort to do a Christmas product, for example, right? So a Christmas product was a lot of effort for us. There's like not many people on the team, and we have to go and buy the turkey and all the trimmings and buy a bigger box and pack this box on, you know, Christmas Eve, right? Not Christmas Eve, a couple of days before Christmas Eve, but you know, when everyone wants to kind of chill, we have to like hack together this box. But then it got in all of like the Evening Standard, the Independent, you know, it was one of those things that people did on BuzzFeed. It's like, you know, creative gifts for the family for Christmas, you know, ways to take the stress out of Christmas for the family, you know, things like that. And so that's all free PR and free growth. But it's only like a one-time thing, but it's something that you can use to kind of very cheaply hack together some initial sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing that we like nerd over in Ogilvy is like just really creative marketing, right? Stuff that is just like, it's so wacky that you have to have some pretty big balls to like be going, let's do that. But it's always the most successful, right? Ideas like that are always the most successful, and they just go crazy. Like, for example, the KFC thing I told you about. I don't remember the Australia thing.
Yeah.
So Ogilvy did some work for KFC Australia, where they put a built-in secret menu into the KFC app in Australia. And so you would open the KFC app, it would look totally normal, but if you were to scroll down beyond what looks like the natural top of the app, it would reveal a little bar, and it would say, "Shh, you've just found the KFC secret menu," and it had a bunch of weird, wacky KFC combination food items that you couldn't normally order. And so they just built this into the app in like a day, and didn't tell anyone about it, right? Other than the KFC people themselves. But like, they didn't do a big advertising campaign around it or anything. That was the whole point, was that it was quiet, and it was like, and then they just wanted people to discover it themselves naturally. And so they did that, and then what happens? People on TikTok start finding it, they start making TikToks about it, they get millions and millions and millions and millions of views, and there's like this huge like social media hype around the secret KFC menu, and the cost to KFC, the agency, was like what, $100 or something, right? Like hardly anything at all. But they got all this free press, and it was like way more powerful than if they had this huge like expensive advertising campaign. And it's about having a creative idea to go viral. That stuff is really awesome. Aman says, "Okay, brother, got to go. See you next time. Nice to see you, mate." Okay, last question from Himalaya says, "What are the problems with logistics? Do you have any in-house delivery or a contractor?" Man, this guy wants to know all about HelloFresh. Can answer that?
What's the question? What are the problems with logistics? Do you have in-house delivery or contract? Yeah, I think in every country it's different, but generally there's a few big logistics providers that you have to work with, right? So in the US, you have UPS and all these people. So I think it depends on your place, and I think when you get to a company the size of like Amazon and things like that, you have to really think about your capacity. And so, for example, our business in Australia does run its own logistics company as well, just because the infrastructure isn't enough for all the volume. So it depends. In the beginning, you just have to use all these other guys, right, and just let them compete on fees for you and quality. But as you get bigger, you do have to think about what strain are you putting on the nation's delivery network, one option is to invest in your own fleet. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take one more from Sila because it's their first question.
Yeah.
And she says, how do you decide on the right amount of effort that the customer has to put in regarding their key effect? How do you make sure that the process is not too overwhelming and actually enjoyable?
Good question.
So 2 answers to this. The first one, which is obvious, which is just test, right? So like if you add steps and suddenly people are not using it anymore, then it's probably too hard. And so make it a bit easier. And so that's the first answer, is just test and iterate. And then the second answer is to think about the idea of chunking in behavioral science, which is like you separate a process into multiple steps, and each step should have meaningful difference. So if you just add a bunch of steps but they don't mean anything, then that's not very satisfying to the person using it, and therefore they're not going to get the benefit of you splitting it up because they're kind of going to lose interest in the process. So you want to have multiple meaningful steps, and normally when you do that, then people will follow through and complete the task. But yeah, I mean, it does that. This is where behavioral science practitioners like myself and and people who work in the same industry as me, this is where we differentiate from each other, is our skill in how we execute these ideas. And it is something that you learn. You can learn so much from academia, and and understanding the principles and how they work can help guide your intuition. But at the end of the day, it is your intuition that has to make the final call on how these ideas get executed. So
I think one of the things as well, to your previous point that you mentioned earlier, was like it can't be too risky as well.
Yeah.
Right, because like it depends on the type of product, but I know with like our products, for example, like there's quite a long payback period on the purchase. So you have to like purchase in advance, then it needs to turn up, then you need to like make the effort to break it out, then you need to cook it, then you need to like cut it, cook it, etc. And only then do you eat it, right? And so there's quite a long payback period. So there's too much risk in the experience. Like so it's kind of like you said, like trying to find that balance of like what's meaningful and like what is the user going to find, like, oh, I actually really contributed to it, but at the same time can't be like, oh, your IKEA furniture falls apart because like 50% of people are breaking them, right? Like IKEA is very specific on like which things to do, right? So like these holes are only for this peg, so you put the peg in, and then it's quite hard to mess it up, honestly. Like people do mess it up, but like it's a low percentage, right? Like you need to make it so that like still 95% of people are successfully completing the task, right? So there's also like a complexity thing there as well.
Cooking is actually pretty hard because once you add heat to the ingredients, it's changed and you can't go back.
Can't go back.
If you think about Lego, right? So Lego is another product which is classic, got built-in IKEA effect to it. With Lego, it's like if you put the piece in the wrong place, unless it's one of those really annoying thin flat pieces, but most of the time you can take the piece off and readjust, and so there's a lot less risk because you have this ability to go back and have an undo button basically. And so yeah, I think that's another part of it as well. Like does your product have the ability to go back in case you do make a mistake, so then you can correct for it and then still follow through. It's just
risk, isn't it? Risk to successful execution versus ability to kind of like do your own thing.
You don't thing is, like, you can make people expend effort without it being stressful. That's kind of the beauty of the IKEA effect, is that if it's executed really well, you make people work harder, but they actually enjoy working harder, and that's really the key to making it effective, and using the principle correctly. Just adding friction unnecessarily, and it makes the experience horrible, that doesn't make people appreciate the product more. It's about adding labor, but actually enjoying the additional labor. All right, guys, I think
we gotta go, huh?
We gotta go, but this was fun. Thank you everybody who came to watch. I will leave this VOD up, I think. I normally delete my live streams, but I'll leave this one up just so you guys can, any of you who didn't manage to catch it live can watch it later on. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I'll be back in September with weekly uploads again, but until then I am working on my dissertation. So yeah, so until then, take care, and I'll see you in September.
Subscribe.
Everyone here is subscribed. Okay, guys.
All right, thanks everyone.
Bye bye.